The moment my son left for a 4-day business trip, he turned to me and said, "Dad, stay home and take care of Mom. She can't manage without us." My wife hadn't taken a single step since her stroke 3 months earlier, but 15 minutes after his car disappeared, I heard the wheelchair creak behind me. I turned and froze. She was standing. Then she slowly walked across the kitchen, grabbed my arm, and whispered, "We have to get out of this house. Don't tell him anything." What she revealed next made me realize why she had been pretending all along. Before we go further, I'm so grateful you're here with me today. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from, which city, which state, which country. I love knowing who's in this community. You're watching Revenge Dad, and stories like this one exist because of you. Please note, this story contains fictional elements for entertainment and educational purposes. Any similarity to real names or places is coincidental, but the message is something worth keeping. I have spent 40 years working with high-voltage electrical systems. I have climbed steel scaffolding 60 feet off the ground in January, wind-spliced live cables in spaces too tight to stand upright, and walked away from job sites that put 2 other men in the hospital. I am not the kind of person who drops things. But when my wife stood up from that wheelchair, I dropped my coffee mug straight onto the kitchen counter, and I did not even notice until I heard it crack. That came later, though. First there was the morning itself. Nolan left at 8 o'clock. I know the exact time because I was watching the clock above the stove, the way you do when someone you love is about to be gone for 4 days, and you were already calculating how quiet the house is going to feel. He came through the kitchen with his rolling suitcase, the black one with the broken zipper pull he kept meaning to replace, and he stopped at Martha's wheelchair near the window. He crouched down beside her, straightened the blanket across her knees, tucked the edge under her thigh the way she liked it. "Mom," he said, and his voice had that particular softness he used only with her. "I'll be back Friday. You rest. Let Dad take care of things." Martha looked up at him. The morning light was coming through the blinds in thin lines across her face, and she gave him a small nod, the kind that doesn't commit to anything. Nolan kissed her on the forehead. Then he stood, rolled his suitcase to the garage door, and looked back at me. "Dad, her morning pills are in the white organizer on the counter. The physical therapy reminder is set for Thursday at 2. Don't let her try the back stairs. The railing on the left side is still loose." He paused. "And if anything feels off, call me first. Before 911, before anybody. Me first." "I know how to take care of my wife," I said. He smiled. "I know you do." Then he picked up his suitcase and walked out. I stood in the kitchen and listened to the garage door go down, listened to his car back out of the driveway, listened to the sound of it disappear down the street. My name is Arthur Hale. I am 62 years old. I worked industrial electrical for 38 years before my knees told me it was time to stop. And I have been married to Martha for 31 of those years. I have a friend named Samuel who worked the same job sites as me for 2 decades, the kind of man who shows up when you call him and does not ask a lot of questions. I thought of Samuel that morning only because the house felt suddenly very large the way it does when you realize you have been filling a space with noise you did not know was noise until it stopped. Martha had her stroke 3 months ago. It was a mild one, the doctors said, as if there is such a thing as a mild stroke when it is your wife on the floor of the kitchen and you are the one calling for help. She survived it. Her mind stayed sharp and clear. But her legs had weakened in a way that the rehabilitation therapist said would take time. And Nolan had taken charge of everything, from the second day onward, the appointments, the prescriptions, the safety rails he installed in the bathroom, the new wheelchair he researched for 2 weeks before ordering. Everyone told us how lucky we were. His aunt called to say she wished her own children were half as devoted. Our neighbor Frank stopped me on the driveway to say Nolan was a good man. I agreed with all of them. I believed every word. I poured what was left of my coffee, leaned against the counter, and thought about what I was going to make for breakfast. Martha usually had oatmeal. I was thinking eggs. That is when I heard it. A soft sound from behind me. A slow, deliberate creak of the floorboard near the hallway, not the random settling of an old house, but the specific rhythm of weight shifting from one foot to the other. The sound of someone trying not to make a sound. I turned around. Martha was standing. Both of her hands gripped the armrests of the wheelchair, her knuckles pale with the effort, her knees trembling visibly beneath her house dress. But she was upright, fully upright. The woman I had been lifting from the bed to the chair every single morning for 3 months was standing in the middle of our kitchen, and my brain simply refused to process it for a full 3 seconds. My hand opened. The mug hit the counter with a crack I felt in my back teeth. Martha, she raised one finger to her lips. Her eyes were steady and alert in a way that sent a cold wire straight down my spine, because that was not the look of someone surprised by their own recovery. That was the look of someone who had been waiting for exactly this moment. She took one step toward me, then another. Her right leg shook with the effort, and she reached out to touch the counter edge, steadying herself. But she did not stop moving. She crossed the distance between us in small, careful steps, and when she reached me, she wrapped both hands around my forearm and held on. "Arthur," she said, and her voice was low and urgent and more serious than I had heard it in months. "We need to leave this house before he comes back." My chest squeezed so hard I forgot to breathe for a moment. I looked at my wife's face, the set of her jaw, the steadiness in her eyes, and I felt the first cold edge of something I did not have a name for yet. "Martha," my voice came out rough. "What are you talking about? Nolan just left for Dallas. He won't be back until—" "I know what he said." She tightened her grip on my arm, and her fingers were stronger than they had any right to be. "Arthur, listen to me. I don't think he actually went to Dallas." I laughed. I am not proud of that. But the sound came out before I could stop it. A short, disbelieving exhale that was more reflex than humor. My wife had just walked across our kitchen on legs that supposedly could not hold her weight, told me our son had not actually left for Dallas, and my first response was to laugh like a man who had just been told the sky was green. Martha did not laugh with me. She looked at me the way she used to look at junior accountants who had made an error in column 4 and not yet realized it. Patient certain, waiting for me to catch up. The laugh died in my throat. "Martha," I said carefully, "you just walked across the kitchen." "I know. You have not walked across the kitchen in 3 months." "I know that too." My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my ears. I pulled out the nearest chair and held it toward her, because whatever else was happening, she had been on her feet for several minutes, and her right knee was still trembling. She sat down without arguing, which told me her leg hurt more than she was letting on. "How long?" I asked. "How long have I been able to walk, or how long have I known something was wrong?" "Both." Martha folded her hands on the table. Her knuckles were still pink from gripping the wheelchair armrests. "I started being able to stand without help about 3 weeks ago. Small steps at first, 4 steps, then 6. I practiced when Nolan was out of the house. The air went out of me like I had taken a punch to the sternum. 3 weeks, Martha, why didn't you—" "Because," she said, and her voice was quiet, but each word landed with the weight of something that had been thought through very carefully. "If you had gone to Nolan before we had anything concrete, he would have explained it away in 10 minutes. And then you would have been stuck between believing your wife or believing your son. I was not going to put you in that position without something real in your hand first." I stared at her. My eyes were burning in a way I was not ready to deal with, so I pressed the back of my hand against my mouth and breathed through my nose until the feeling passed. "Show me," I finally said. "Show me what you have." Martha pointed at the white pill organizer on the counter, the one Nolan had set up labeled by day and time in his careful block lettering. "Don't give me those," she said. "Not a single one." I picked up the organizer and looked at it. 7 compartments, morning, noon, night, everything neat and organized and exactly where it was supposed to be. "Martha, these are your— take the morning pills out and put them next to the bottle from Dr. Carter." I found the original prescription bottle in the cabinet above the coffee maker and shook a few into my palm. Then I opened the organizer and did the same. I set them side by side on the kitchen table. The pills from the organizer were a slightly different shade, rounder. The imprint code stamped into the surface was not the same as the ones from the prescription bottle. My hand went cold. 3 weeks ago, Martha said, watching my face, I started noticing that on the mornings I took the pills Nolan gave me, I felt foggy by midday, heavy in the legs, like thinking through gauze. She reached across the table and tapped the organizer. Twice I wrapped the pill in a tissue and threw it away instead of swallowing it. Both of those days, I felt like myself. I stood up for almost 20 minutes each time. "Martha!" My voice cracked on her name. I pressed my knuckles against the table to stop my hand from shaking. "Are you telling me our son put something in your medication? I am telling you the pills he gave me are not the pills Dr. Carter prescribed. What they are exactly I do not know yet. I need a doctor to tell me that." Her jaw tightened. "What I do know is that those 2 pills sitting there are not the same pill. I wanted to pick up the phone and call Nolan that second. I wanted to call the police. I wanted to do something with my hands other than stand there while the last 3 months rearranged themselves into a shape I did not recognize. Martha read all of that on my face. "There is more," she said. She reached down beneath the cushion of her wheelchair, not the seat but the thin padded back panel, and her fingers found something tucked into a seam. She drew out a small spiral notebook, the kind you can buy at any drugstore for $1. 49, its cover bent and soft from being hidden there for weeks. She opened it and placed it on the table in front of me. The handwriting was hers, small, precise, the same hand that had balanced household accounts for 30 years. Dates ran down the left margin in a column. Next to each date, a note. I read the first entry, and my stomach dropped straight through the floor. Day 4. Arthur placed his keys on the hook by the garage door at 7:10 in the evening. Nolan walked past the hook at 7:34, following morning keys found in the kitchen junk drawer. Arthur believed he had forgotten. I read the next one. My throat tightened so badly I had to swallow twice before I could get air. Day 8. Arthur paid the electric bill online at 9:22 in the morning. Confirmed completion closed the browser. Nolan told him on day 11 that the bill had not been paid. Arthur apologized and paid it again. I turned the page. My fingers were not steady. Day 13. Arthur locked the back door at 10:05 at night. I heard the deadbolt turn from my room. Nolan went downstairs at 11:18. Following morning, Nolan told Arthur the door had been left open all night. Arthur accepted this. I set the notebook down on the table because I did not trust my hands with it anymore. The burning was back behind my eyes, hotter this time, and I was not able to stop it the same way. I pressed the heel of my palm against my forehead and breathed. "You were watching him," I said. My voice did not sound like my voice. "I was watching both of you," Martha said. Her own voice had gone very soft, the way it only gets when something has cost her something real. "Arthur, he has been making you question your own memory. Every time you forgot something, it was because he moved it. Every bill you thought you had paid it. Every door you thought you had locked it. The full weight of it hit me all at once, and I had to grip the edge of the table with both hands. I thought about every time Nolan had clapped me on the shoulder and laughed and said, 'Dad, you are getting forgetful.' I had laughed with him. I had started wondering quietly in the dark hours of the early morning whether something was happening to my mind that I was not going to be able to stop. He made me think I was losing it," I said. "Yes. For 3 months, Martha, I thought." My voice broke apart completely. I stopped. I pressed my lips together hard and stared at a point on the wall until I had control of my breathing again. Martha reached across the table and put her hand over mine. Her grip was firm and warm and steadier than anything else in the room. "I know," she said. "I know what you thought. That is why I kept the notebook." I looked down at her hand on mine. Then I looked up at her face. Her eyes were bright with something that was not quite tears, but was close enough that it made my chest ache. "He put cameras in the house," she said quietly. "But the one in the kitchen points at the hallway and your desk. It does not cover the corner where I sit in the mornings. That is the only reason he never saw me dispose of those pills." She paused. "Which means he has been watching you far more carefully than he has been watching me." "Go to the bottom drawer of his desk," Martha said. Her voice had gone very still. "Look at what is in there, and when you find it, do not react. The cameras are recording right now." I had been in Nolan's room hundreds of times, to fix the outlet near the window, to help him move the desk when he rearranged it 2 summers ago, to drop off clean laundry when Martha's arms were tired. I walked in now like I was just passing through the way Martha had told me, casual, unhurried, the way a man moves when he thinks nothing is wrong, because the cameras were watching. And if Nolan was sitting in some hotel room 25 minutes away with his phone in his hand, I was not going to be the one to tip him off. The bottom drawer of his desk was heavier than I expected. I pulled it open slowly and looked down. There were folders, a few owner's manuals for appliances, a padded envelope that had already been opened, and underneath all of it, a folded piece of paper, a printed hotel confirmation, 2 nights a place called the Harbor View Extended Stay on Pacific Coast Highway. Some hotels still require a printed copy at check-in. He had printed it and forgotten it was there, or had not expected anyone to look. Check-in date today. This morning. My jaw tightened so hard my back teeth ached. I refolded the paper, put it back exactly where I found it, closed the drawer, stood up, and walked back to the kitchen the same way I had walked in, steady, unhurried, like a man who had found nothing worth mentioning. Martha looked at my face and knew immediately. Her hand gripped the edge of the table. "He's not in Dallas," I said, keeping my voice low and even. "No." Her voice dropped to match mine. "What was in the drawer?" "Hotel confirmation, Pacific Coast Highway. Checked in this morning." Martha closed her eyes for just a moment, and when she opened them, they were wet at the corners, but her jaw was set hard. "That is 25 minutes from here," she said. "He can be back in this house before we finish a cup of coffee." That was when the cold urgency hit me. Not fear exactly, but the kind of focused clarity I used to get on job sites when something went wrong with a live circuit, and I had about 4 seconds to make the right decision. I looked around the kitchen, then I looked at the cameras. Nolan had installed 3 of them after Martha's stroke. He told us they were for her safety, so he could check on her from work, make sure she had not fallen. I had thought that was a reasonable thing for a worried son to do. I had never once thought to ask which direction they were pointed. I looked at the one mounted near the kitchen ceiling. It faced the hallway leading to the bedrooms. I looked at the one near the back door. It covered the entrance and the laundry room beyond. Then I looked at the third one, positioned on a small shelf near the window, and felt something cold move through my chest, because that camera was pointed directly at my desk in the corner of the kitchen. Not at the table where Martha sat every morning, not at the stove or the back steps where she might fall. At my desk, at my computer, at the spot where I paid bills and kept the household files and signed whatever paperwork Nolan set in front of me. "He told us these were for you," I said. My voice came out rough and scraped. "I know what he told us," Martha said. Her eyes moved from the third camera back to me. "We need to be gone before he checks the feed. Right now, Arthur." I wanted to reach up and tear all 3 of them off the wall. My hands actually moved toward the nearest one before Martha said, sharp and quiet, "Don't." I stopped. "If he is watching right now and the feed goes dead, he will know we found out. We need to be gone before that happens." She pushed her chair back and gripped the table edge to stand. Her right leg shook with the effort, and she sucked in a breath through her teeth, but she got upright. "We take the pills, the notebook, the important papers. We leave like we are going for a drive." I grabbed my keys from the hook by the garage. My hand was not entirely steady, but I held on. We were almost at the door when my phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Frank, our neighbor next door, time-stamped 8:47:45 minutes after Nolan had driven away. "Hey Arthur, saw Nolan's car leave this morning around 8. Then I'm pretty sure I saw it back on the side street around 8:45. Figured he forgot something. Just thought you should know." I read the message twice. Then I held the phone out to Martha without a word. She read it. A long, slow breath left her body, and when she looked up at me, her eyes were no longer wet. They were sharp and clear and absolutely certain. "He never left," she said. "There are moments when everything you thought you understood about a situation collapses into a completely different shape, and the new shape is worse than anything you had imagined." Reading Frank's text message was one of those moments. I pulled up the doorbell camera app on my phone while Martha stood beside me close enough that I could feel the slight tremor still moving through her right leg. The app kept a 72-hour rolling record. I scrolled back to 8:02 in the morning and hit play. Nolan's black SUV backed out of the driveway, turned left, disappeared. I dragged the timeline forward. 8:47. A dark vehicle same color, rolled slowly past the mouth of our street and turned onto the side road that runs behind the row of houses backing up to ours. The camera angle was not perfect, but the shape of that car was not something I was going to mistake. My thumb went still on the screen. "He came back," I said. The words felt strange in my mouth, too simple for what they meant. "He drove away, and then he came back and parked where the camera couldn't get a clear shot." Martha's hand found my arm. Her grip was tight enough to hurt a little, and I was glad for it because it gave me something to focus on other than the roaring that had started up somewhere behind my eyes. "He is watching the cameras from that hotel," she said, "which means he could see everything we just did inside the house." That snapped me back fast. "The notebook," I said. "The pills on the table." "I put the notebook in my bag while you were in his room. The pills I swept back into the organizer." Her voice was steady, but her fingers dug deeper into my arm. "Arthur, we need to move right now. Not in 10 minutes. Now." We moved. I helped Martha down the back steps. She took them slowly, jaw-tight right hand, white-knuckled on the railing, and got her into the passenger seat of my truck. I kept my movements deliberate and unhurried the entire time, the way you move around a live wire when you know it is live, and you know something is watching. Once we were both inside and the doors were closed, I let out a breath that felt like it had been sitting in my chest for 20 minutes. I backed out of the driveway at a normal speed, turned onto the street, drove. "Where are we going?" Martha asked. "Dr. Carter first," I said. "You need someone to look at those pills and tell us what they actually are." Martha nodded. Then she said, "Nolan told you Dr. Carter had dropped my case." I had forgotten that. It landed in my stomach like something heavy dropped from a height. 3 weeks ago, Nolan had mentioned it casually. Over dinner, said the doctor's office had called to say they were managing too high a patient load, and Martha would need to transition to someone closer to the house. I had offered to help find someone new. Nolan had said he was already handling it. "He told me she was too busy," I said. He told me the same thing. Martha was looking straight ahead through the windshield. The morning sun was full now, bright on the Long Beach streets, and it made everything look aggressively normal. Traffic moving, a woman walking a dog, a kid on a bicycle cutting through a parking lot. I believed him. I had no reason not to. I merged onto the freeway. The 10 was already backing up, the way it always does by mid-morning in Los Angeles. And I sat in the slow crawl of it, with my hands at 10 and 2, and my mind working through things in the methodical way I used to work through wiring diagrams, tracing each line back to its source, checking every connection. If Nolan had told us both that Dr. Carter had dropped the case, and Dr. Carter had not actually dropped the case, then Nolan had deliberately cut Martha off from her own physician. And if he had done that, then every piece of medical information that had passed between this family and the outside world for the last 3 months had gone through him first. I thought about all the appointments I had offered to attend, and Nolan had waved me off. "Dad, you don't need to come. I've got it. Stay home and rest." I had been grateful. I had thought that was what a good son looked like. My throat tightened until swallowing hurt. I picked up my phone and dialed Dr. Carter's direct line. From memory, Martha had seen her for 11 years, long enough that I knew the number without looking. It rang 3 times. "Long Beach Medical Group, Dr. Carter's office." "This is Arthur Hale. I need to speak with Dr. Carter directly if she's available. It concerns my wife, Martha Hale." A pause. "Hold music." Then a click. "Mr. Hale." Dr. Carter's voice came on, measured professional. Then, after the shortest hesitation, she said something that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up straight. "Is Martha there with you?" She did not ask how I was. She did not ask what I was calling about. She asked immediately without preamble whether my wife was physically present, and the way she asked it, quiet, careful, like a woman choosing her words around something fragile, told me that Dr. Helen Carter had been waiting for this phone call for a very long time. My grip tightened on the phone until my knuckles ached. I looked over at Martha in the passenger seat. "Yes," I said. "She's right here." I handed the phone to Martha without a word. She took it with both hands, steadier than I expected, steadier than I felt, and brought it to her ear. I kept my eyes on the road and my hands on the wheel, but every part of my attention was on the woman sitting 18 inches away from me. I could not hear Dr. Carter's voice through the phone, but I did not need to. I watched Martha's face instead, and what I saw there told me everything. At first, her expression was careful and composed the way it always is when she is listening hard. Then something shifted behind her eyes, a slow, terrible recognition, the kind that does not arrive all at once but seeps in like water through a cracked foundation. Her free hand moved to her lap and closed into a fist around the fabric of her house dress and did not let go. By the time she said, "Yes, I understand. We will be there in 15 minutes. Her voice was so controlled, it frightened me more than tears would have. She lowered the phone, stared straight ahead through the windshield at the Long Beach traffic moving around us. "She called me twice," Martha said. "Once 3 weeks ago, once 10 days ago. Both times Nolan answered the house phone and told her I was too exhausted to speak." She stopped, swallowed. "She sent a follow-up letter after the second call. She never heard back." The muscle in my jaw tightened so hard it sent a spike of pain up toward my temple. "Because he takes the mail in before you're up," I said. "Every morning." Martha's fist tightened further in her lap. "She also told me she contacted the clinic's front desk to confirm my next appointment and was informed that our family had requested a transfer to a different physician, closer to home, better suited to long-term recovery cases." Her voice did not shake, but the knuckles of her closed fist had gone completely white. "She never received that request from us, Arthur. She received it from whoever called on our behalf. I pulled off the freeway at the Lakewood exit and drove the rest of the way in silence that was not really silence at all. It was full of every appointment I had not attended every time I had said Nolan's handling it, and felt relieved not to have to deal with it myself. Long Beach Medical Group was a low beige building, set back from the street, with a small parking lot that was already half full. I found a space near the entrance and cut the engine. Martha had her door open before I finished parking. Dr. Helen Carter met us in the hallway outside her office rather than the waiting room. She was a compact woman in her late 50s, silver hair pulled back reading glasses hanging on a chain around her neck. The moment she saw Martha walking toward her with a cane walking upright under her own power, something moved across the doctor's face that was not quite shock, but was close to it. "Martha?" She stepped forward and took both of Martha's hands in hers. "I am so glad you called. I am sorry it took this long," Martha said, and her voice finally cracked on the last word, just slightly, just enough that I had to look away for a second and study the framed anatomy poster on the opposite wall until I had my own face back under control. We sat in Dr. Carter's office, 2 chairs across from her desk, the door closed. Martha laid out everything in the precise, orderly way she used to present financial reports. Facts, first timeline, second conclusions, last. Dr. Carter listened without interrupting. She asked 2 clarifying questions. She wrote nothing down until Martha had finished, and then she wrote steadily for almost a full minute. "I want to be clear about something," Dr. Carter said, setting her pen down. "Under normal circumstances, patient privacy laws mean I cannot discuss Martha's care with anyone she has not explicitly authorized. That protection is there for good reason." She looked at me directly. "What appears to have happened is that someone represented himself as speaking on Martha's behalf and used that position to redirect information away from her rather than toward her. That is not what those protections are designed to allow. He answered for her at every appointment. I said," my voice came out harder than I intended, "every single one. She would start to say something and he would finish the sentence." Dr. Carter nodded slowly. "I noticed that pattern during the early visits. I attributed it to a family member coping with stress. I should have insisted on speaking with Martha privately." The line of her mouth tightened. "That is something I will have to sit with." She examined Martha thoroughly, strength tests, balance, reflexes. She asked Martha to walk the length of the hallway and back. She watched carefully and said nothing until Martha had returned to the chair. "Your recovery is significantly further along than your son has been representing," she said. "The strength in your right leg is reduced, yes. Your balance needs continued work. But the picture he has been describing to me, the confusion, the inability to stand the cognitive fog that does not match what I am seeing in this room today." Martha's eyes filled. She pressed her lips together and breathed hard through her nose, and I reached over and put my hand over her fist in her lap, and she grabbed onto my fingers and held on. Dr. Carter reached across the desk and took the pill samples Martha had brought in a small Ziploc bag. She examined them, compared them to the prescription record on her screen, and set them aside with a careful, deliberate movement. "I am going to have these analyzed," she said. "I cannot tell you what they are until I do. What I can tell you is that they are not what I prescribed." She looked at both of us steadily. "Do not give Martha any medication you cannot independently verify, and I want to document everything we have discussed today in her medical record with your permission." "Yes," Martha said immediately. "Document all of it." Dr. Carter nodded. Then she picked up her pen again and said in the tone of someone who has made a decision and is not going back on it, "From this point forward, all communication about Martha's care comes directly to me, from Martha or from you, Mr. Hale, no one else. Is that understood?" "Understood," I said. We were walking back through the parking lot toward my truck when my phone rang. I looked at the screen. Ray Peterson, the man renting our duplex property over in Compton. I had not spoken to him in 2 months. I could not think of any reason he would be calling me today. I answered it anyway. "Mr. Hale." Ray's voice was careful in the way voices get when someone is not sure how much trouble they are about to cause. "I am glad you called. I am glad you picked up. I have been meaning to reach out. I assumed you and Mrs. Hale had already sorted things out with Nolan, about the property." I stopped walking. "What about the property?" A pause. "He told me I would need to be out by the end of the year," Ray said. "Said the place was changing hands, getting renovated." Another pause, shorter. I figured since he was handling things for you that you already knew. I stood in the parking lot of Long Beach Medical Group with the phone against my ear and the sun beating down on the back of my neck, and I made myself breathe slowly and evenly, the way I used to do when a job site started going sideways and panicking was not an option. Ray, I said, keeping my voice level. Nolan is not authorized to make any decisions about that property, not one. He never has been. A long pause from the other end. Oh, another pause. Oh, I see, I'm Mr. Hale. I'm sorry, he called me maybe 3 weeks ago, maybe a month. He sounded like he knew exactly what he was talking about. I just assumed. I understand, I said. This is not your fault. I will be in touch within the next few days. Do not make any plans to leave. I ended the call and looked at Martha. She was watching my face with that expression she gets when she already knows what I'm going to say and is waiting to see if I have figured it out yet. He told our tenant the house is changing hands, I said. Yes. Without asking us, without telling us. Yes. I pressed my hand flat against the roof of the truck and stared at it for a moment, the old scar across my knuckles from a job site accident 15 years ago, the calluses that never fully softened after I retired. My hand was shaking slightly. I curled it into a fist until it stopped. I need to go back to the house, I said. His room. There's more in there. Martha nodded. We go together, we act normal, we take what we need, and we leave. We drove back to the house the same way we had left it, unhurried, ordinary. I pulled into the garage and we went in through the side door. The cameras were still running. I reminded myself of that with every step. In Nolan's room, I went through the desk more carefully this time. The hotel confirmation was still in the bottom drawer where I had left it. Behind it, tucked against the back panel, was a manila folder I had missed the first time. Inside was a printed email chain between Nolan and a real estate brokerage in Los Angeles Pacific Premier Properties, according to the letterhead. The emails requested a preliminary market analysis for a 2-unit residential property in Compton. Nolan had described himself as the property manager, acting on behalf of the owners. My stomach turned over hard. There was a second document beneath the email chain. I unfolded it carefully and read it twice to make sure I was understanding it correctly. It was a draft power of attorney. 4 pages, Martha's name where it should not have been. Nolan's name where it absolutely should not have been. It was not signed, not yet. But it was a plan written down, and that was enough to make the air in the room feel very thin. Martha, my voice came out strange, too quiet, too careful. She had followed me into the room and was standing near the doorway, one hand resting on the frame for balance. I crossed to her and held up the document without a word. She read it. I watched her face. She did not gasp, did not flinch, did not look surprised in the way. You look surprised by something you never imagined. She looks surprised the way you look when a thing you feared turns out to be real, a kind of grim, exhausted recognition. That is what all of this is for, she said quietly. Her voice was steady, but something behind her eyes had gone very still, the way water goes, still right before it freezes. If you had signed this, I started. I know. She handed it back to me. He needed me confused. He needed you unreliable. He needed both of us to seem like we could not manage on our own. She looked down at the unsigned signature line with Martha J. Hale typed neatly below it. Annie nearly had it. I photographed every page of both documents on my phone, put everything back exactly as I had found it. We packed what we needed: a change of clothes, each Martha's original prescription bottles, the notebook, the household insurance files, the deed to the Compton property, and we left the house for the second time that day. This time, I did not look back at it. The drive to Pasadena took 40 minutes in midday traffic, the kind of stop-and-start crawl on the 210 freeway that, on any other day, would have made me irritable. Today, I barely noticed it. Martha sat in the passenger seat with the household files on her lap, and her hands folded on top of them, and neither of us spoke much because there was too much to say and the right words had not arrived yet. Diane's house was a small craftsman on a street lined with old liquidumber trees that were just starting to turn at the edges. I pulled into her driveway and called her from the car to let her know we were outside. She opened the front door before we reached the porch steps. She was wearing her work clothes. She had taken the day off to catch up on things around the house, and she had a dish towel in one hand that she was still holding when she saw Martha come up the front path. Martha was moving carefully, her right leg giving her trouble after the long morning, but she was upright and she was walking, and there was absolutely no mistaking it. The dish towel hit the porch floor. "Oh my God!" Diane's voice broke open on the words. Her hand flew to her mouth, and her eyes went immediately bright and wet. "You, Martha, you can walk." "Getting there," Martha said, and managed a small, tired smile. Diane looked at me over Martha's shoulder, and the expression on her face shifted from joy to something complicated and uncertain. She reached out and gripped my arm to steady herself, because I think her knees had gone a little unreliable. "Arthur," she said. Her voice had dropped. "Nolan called me 2 weeks ago." We sat in Diane's living room, Martha on the couch with a pillow tucked under her right knee, me in the armchair across from her, and Diane perched on the edge of the coffee table because she was too agitated to sit properly in a chair. The liquid amber trees outside the window threw moving shadows across the carpet. Diane had made coffee that none of us were drinking. "He called on a Tuesday," Diane said. Her hands were wrapped around her mug, and she kept turning it in slow circles without lifting it. "Around 7 in the evening. I remember because I had just gotten home from the grocery store and I was putting things away when my phone rang." "What did he say?" I asked. Diane looked at me with an expression that made my chest hurt, the look of someone who has just understood that they were used. "He said Mom was doing worse than they had let on publicly, that she was almost completely unable to control her legs anymore, that her cognition was, he used that word, cognition, that it was declining on bad days." She swallowed. "He said you were struggling too, Arthur, that your memory had gotten bad enough that he was worried about leaving the two of you alone, that you had missed bill payments, left the back door unlocked overnight, misplaced things constantly." The coffee mug in Diane's hand stopped turning. "He said he was exhausted," she continued, her voice dropping, "that he was carrying everything by himself, and that neither of you would accept help gracefully. He said he was considering hiring a full-time caregiver because—" She stopped, set the mug down on the table with a small, sharp click. "Because you wouldn't accept that you were getting old, Arthur." Those were his words. Something hot moved through my chest that was not quite anger and not quite grief, but somewhere between the two. I pressed my back teeth together and breathed through my nose. "Why didn't you call me?" I asked. "Or call Martha directly?" Diane's eyes went wet immediately. She pressed the back of her hand against her mouth for a moment before she answered. "I tried. I called the house 3 times over the next week. Every time Nolan answered and said Martha was sleeping, or too worn out to talk. I sent her 2 text messages." She looked at Martha directly. "You never answered." "I never saw them," Martha said. Her voice was quiet and even. "He managed the house phone. My cell phone disappeared 2 months ago. He said I had left it somewhere, and it was lost, and that we would get a new one when things settled down." A pause. "Things never settled down." Diane made a sound that was not quite a word, somewhere between a sob and an exhale, and reached across the coffee table to grip Martha's hand with both of hers. Martha let her. Her own eyes had gone bright, but she held herself together with the particular discipline of a woman who has been holding herself together for a very long time and has gotten very good at it. "He isolated you," Diane said. It was not a question. "Yes," Martha said simply. "I stood up because I needed to do something with my body other than sit there while the anger built to a level I could not safely contain in a chair. I walked to the window and looked out at the street. The ordinary Tuesday afternoon of it, a neighbor's sprinklers coming on a UPS truck double parked at the corner, and I put my hand flat against the glass and pressed until I felt the coolness of it against my palm. "Show me his social media," I said. "You mentioned it on the phone." Diane picked up her phone and brought it to me without a word. She had already pulled up Nolan's profile. I scrolled through it slowly. There were photographs going back almost to the day of Martha's stroke. Nolan pushing the wheelchair down a hospital corridor, head bent close to Martha's expression, attentive and tender. Nolan in our kitchen, standing over the stove, a pot of soup in front of him, caption reading, "Homemade chicken broth. Because Mom needs real food, not cafeteria stuff." Nolan asleep in the recliner next to Martha's bed. In the early weeks he'd tipped back, still wearing his work clothes, like a man too devoted to go home. A video of him installing the bathroom safety rail, narrating quietly as he worked, making sure everything is right, because she deserves to feel safe in her own home. Hundreds of comments. "You're such a good son. Your parents are so lucky. This made me cry. God bless you." My stomach turned over. Martha had come to stand beside me. She looked at the screen for a moment, then pointed at one photograph Nolan seated next to her wheelchair in our living room, both of them looking at something off camera, the light warm and golden. "That was taken at 8:14 in the evening," she said. I remember because the news had just started. 6 minutes after that photograph was taken, he left the house. He did not come back until 1:50 in the morning. I looked at the caption beneath the photo. Quiet evenings at home. This is what matters. I handed the phone back to Diane. My hand was not entirely steady. He built an audience, I said. My voice came out rougher than I meant it to. He built an entire audience of people who would vouch for him. People who had seen the photographs and believed the story. Yes, Martha said. So that when he made his move with the property with the power of attorney, anyone who questioned it would be going up against 3 months of evidence that he was the devoted one, the responsible one, the one keeping everything together while the two old people fell apart. Neither of them said anything to that, which was the same as saying yes. I asked Diane to stay close over the next few days within reach available. She nodded before I finished the sentence. Then I walked back to the armchair and picked up my phone and stood there for a moment looking at the contact list. There was one more person who had been inside Nolan's version of events. One more person who had been fed a story without knowing it was a story. I found the name and pressed call. Vanessa answered on the second ring. Her voice was careful in the particular way it gets when she is not sure whether she is in trouble. Arthur, is everything okay? Not entirely, I said. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Can you meet us this afternoon? A pause. 3 full seconds of it. Yes, she said. Tell me where. We have made it halfway through this story, and what Arthur and Martha are about to find out next will change everything they thought they understood. If you are still here with me on Revenge, Dad, drop the number 8 in the comments right now. It tells me you are with me, and it helps this story reach someone who might need to hear it. Just a note: portions of what follows include fictional elements built for storytelling and reflection. If this kind of content is not for you, it is completely fine to step away now and find something that suits you better. The diner in Torrance was the kind of place that has been in the same spot for 30 years and looks at red vinyl booths worn smooth at the edges, a counter with spinning stools, a pie case near the register with 3 kinds of pie, and a handwritten sign that said the coconut cream was sold out. We got there before Vanessa did and took a booth near the back window away from the door. Martha slid in across from me and set her cane against the wall. Her right leg had been bothering her since we left Pasadena. She had not said so, but I had watched her favor it getting out of the car, and the line of her mouth had that particular tightness it gets when something hurts and she has decided not to mention it. You should have let me get you something for the pain before we left Diane's, I said. I am fine. Martha, Arthur? She looked at me steadily. We can discuss my leg after we talk to Vanessa. I did not argue. 31 years of marriage has taught me the specific tone that means the conversation is over, and she was using it. Vanessa came through the door 8 minutes later. She was still in her work clothes. She taught kindergarten at an elementary school in Hawthorne and came straight from there, and she had the slightly frayed look of a woman who had been holding herself carefully composed all day and was starting to feel the effort of it. She spotted us, and for a moment, she just stood at the entrance to the diner with her bag strap over one shoulder and her eyes moving between my face and Martha's. Then she saw Martha's cane, saw the way Martha was sitting upright, alert, nothing like the picture Nolan had been painting for anyone who would listen. Vanessa's hand went to her mouth. Her eyes filled so fast it looked involuntary, like a reflex she could not stop. Mom, her voice broke on the word. She crossed the diner in a dozen quick steps and slid into the booth beside Martha and wrapped both arms around her mother-in-law's shoulders, and Martha let her. And for a moment, Vanessa just held on, with her face pressed against Martha's shoulder, breathing in an unsteady way that told me she had been carrying something heavy for a long time and had not had anywhere to put it down. When she finally straightened up and wiped her eyes with the heel of her hand, she looked at me with an expression that was half relief and half something I could only describe as braced, like a person who knows. The hard part of the conversation is still coming. He told me you could barely move your legs, she said to Martha. He said the doctors thought you might not fully recover. He said... She stopped, pressed her lips together. He said a lot of things. I know, Martha said. Tell us what he said about Arthur. Vanessa looked at me, and the expression on her face shifted into something uncomfortable and apologetic. He said you were the reason she wasn't getting better, she said. He said you were too overprotective, that you were so afraid of her falling that you wouldn't let her do her physical therapy exercises properly, that every time the therapist made progress, you would undo it by hovering. She folded her hands on the table in front of her. He said he was having to work around you to help her. The words landed in my chest like something blunt and heavy. I had spent 3 months watching my wife sit in that wheelchair, thinking I was respecting what the doctors said, thinking I was keeping her safe. And the whole time, our son had been telling his wife that I was the problem. "Did you believe him?" I asked. I kept my voice even. Vanessa's jaw tightened. "I wanted to understand the situation," she said carefully. "He is my husband. I trusted that he was telling me what he actually saw." She paused. "But there were things that did not add up. Things I told myself were not important." "Tell me," I said. She unfolded her hands and looked at them. "He took over our joint account about 2 months ago, said it was easier to manage everything from one place while he was handling your finances and his own. I did not have access to the full picture anymore. He would give me money when I needed it, but if I asked about specific transactions, he would say he was handling it." Her voice had gone flat in the way voices go, when someone is describing something that hurt them and has decided to be factual about it rather than emotional. "There was a shortfall, a significant one. He told me it was a real estate investment that had not settled yet." "How much?" I asked. I could see from what was left that it was at least $47,000, maybe more. She looked up. "He told me it was temporary, that he had a plan to fix it." I felt Martha's foot touch mine under the table, a small, deliberate pressure. I looked at her. Her eyes told me to let Vanessa keep talking. "Did he tell you what the plan was?" Martha asked. Vanessa shook her head slowly. "He does not tell me plans. He tells me conclusions." She picked up the paper napkin from under her silverware and folded it in half, then in quarters, then set it down again. I asked him twice about the account. The second time he told me I was creating stress in the household by fixating on finances and that I should trust him to handle it. Her mouth tightened. I stopped asking. I thought about the power of attorney draft sitting in the bottom of Nolan's desk. I thought about Ray Peterson being told to vacate. I thought about the email chain with the real estate brokerage, the plan to fix it. $47,000 and a plan to fix it. "Vanessa," I said, "did he ever tell you anything about selling the Compton property?" She looked up sharply. "Your rental house?" "Yes." "He mentioned once that it was an underperforming asset and that you would probably be better off liquidating it before it became a liability." She hesitated. "He made it sound like your idea." Martha made a sound then very small, very controlled, but I knew that sound. I had heard it exactly twice in our marriage, both times when something had hurt her badly enough that she almost could not contain it. She picked up her water glass and took a slow sip and set it back down and said nothing. And the effort of that particular nothing was visible in every line of her face. I reached across the table and put my hand over hers. She turned her hand over and gripped my fingers hard. "Vanessa," I said, keeping my voice steady for both of them. "I want you to know that none of what I am about to tell you is your fault. You were given incomplete information by someone you had every reason to trust." I paused. "That is something I understand very well right now." I told her everything. All of it, from Martha standing up in the kitchen that morning, to the hotel confirmation, to the power of attorney draft, to Ray Peterson's phone call. Vanessa listened without interrupting, her hands flat on the table in front of her, her face cycling through expressions I recognized. Disbelief, recognition, a slow and painful reordering of things she thought she had understood. When I finished, she sat very still for a long moment. Then she said, "He told me a different story about every single person at this table." "Yes," Martha said, "that is how it works. Each story is designed to keep us from comparing notes." Vanessa looked out the window at the Torrance traffic moving past in the late afternoon light. Her eyes were dry now, but her jaw was set hard, and there was something working behind her expression that I recognized as a person reaching a conclusion they are not yet ready to say out loud. "What do you need from me?" she asked. "Nothing right now," I said. "I just needed you to know the truth. What you do with it is your decision." She nodded slowly. Then Martha said quietly, but with the particular firmness she reserves for things she has already decided, "Arthur, first thing tomorrow morning, we need to sit down with an attorney." I looked at my wife across the table, tired, hurting upright, and said, "I know. I already know. I have never been comfortable in lawyers' offices. Too much carpet, too much dark wood, too many framed diplomas arranged on walls in a way that is designed to remind you that you are not the expert in the room. I spent 38 years as the expert in the room, the man who knew which wire went where and what happened if you got it wrong, and sitting across a desk from someone who speaks a language I only partially understand has always made me feel like I am working without a circuit diagram. That morning I did not care about any of that. The attorney's name was Gerald Foss. He had an office on Pine Avenue in Long Beach, 3rd floor, with a window that looked out over the street and a bookcase along the entire back wall filled with volumes that looked like they had actually been read. He was in his mid-60s trim, with the kind of unhurried manner that suggested he had sat across from a great many frightened people and had learned not to add to their fear unnecessarily. He had taken our call the previous evening on a referral from an old colleague of mine, the kind of attorney who understood that some situations do not improve while waiting for a calendar opening. We sat down at 8:40 in the morning. I put everything on his desk, the photographed documents on my phone, which his assistant printed. While we waited, the original prescription bottles, Martha's notebook, the hotel, confirmation, the email chain with Pacific Premier Properties. Gerald Foss looked at each item in turn, reading carefully, asking a quiet question here and there. He did not react visibly to any of it. That I was learning was what competent people looked like under pressure. When he had gone through everything, he set the papers in a neat stack and folded his hands on top of them. "Let me tell you what you have and what you don't have," he said. "Please," Martha said. "What you have is evidence of intent." He tapped the printed email chain. "Your son contacted a real estate brokerage, represented himself as the property manager, acting on the owner's behalf, and requested a preliminary market analysis. Under California law, requesting a market analysis requires no legal authority. Any member of the public can ask a brokerage to value a property. So, that action by itself is not illegal." I felt a tightening in my chest. But, Gerald Foss said, with the emphasis of a man who has been waiting to use that word, "the document you found in his desk is a different matter entirely." He held up the printed copy of the power of attorney draft. "This is a California statutory form for a durable power of attorney. If signed and notarized, it would give your son full authority over Martha's financial decisions, her property and her assets." He typed Martha's name as the grantor and his own name as the agent. He set it down. He did not ask Martha to sign it. He did not tell either of you it existed. He prepared it and kept it in his desk. "What does that mean legally?" I asked. "By itself, a draft document means nothing. A document that has not been signed and notarized has no legal force under California Probate Code, Section 4121. He cannot do anything with it." Gerald Foss paused. "What it means practically is that he was building towards something. The market analysis, the tenant notification, the power of attorney draft, these are sequential steps. He was preparing the ground. If Martha had signed that document under any circumstances, including circumstances where her judgment was temporarily impaired, everything would have changed very quickly." Martha's hand found my arm under the edge of the desk. Her grip was tight, and I covered her hand with mine and held on. "He needed her to seem incapable," I said. The words tasted like something I did not want in my mouth. "And he needed me to seem unreliable." "That is a reasonable conclusion from what you have shown me," Gerald Foss said. He did not soften it or dress it up. I appreciated that. "What I recommend you do immediately is this." He began counting on his fingers. "One formal written notification to Pacific Premier Properties that no member of your family has authority to discuss or negotiate the sale of that property on your behalf. 2, revocation of any informal authority your son has been exercising over your financial accounts. Change passwords, remove him from any accounts where he appears as a contact or secondary holder. 3, notification to your bank that he is not authorized to act on your behalf going forward." "We can do all of that today," Martha asked. "You can begin today. Some of it will take a few days to process through the institutions." He looked at her steadily. "The important thing is to act now before he does." Martha nodded. She reached for the pen his assistant had left on the desk and said, "Tell me where to start." I watched my wife sign the authorization for Gerald Foss to send the formal notification letters. Her hand was steady. Mine would not have been, but hers was, and I found that steadiness more comforting than anything the attorney had said. Gerald Foss looked at me over his reading glasses. "There is one more thing I want to address. The medication situation. Your wife described the pills that did not match her prescription. Dr. Carter is analyzing them," I said. "When those results come back, I want you to bring them to me immediately." He set his pen down. Under California Welfare and Institutions Code, Section 15610.30 financial abuse applies to elders over 65 and to dependent adults those whose physical or mental limitations substantially restrict their ability to carry out normal activities. Given Martha's stroke-related condition and her documented rehabilitation status, she qualifies as a dependent adult under Section 15610.23. What your son did with the tenant, the brokerage, and the power of attorney draft may fall within that definition. He paused. The medication is a separate question entirely that touches on physical well-being, not just financial. Depending on what Dr. Carter finds, that may need to be reported to Adult Protective Services. I had been holding myself together fairly well up to that point. The words Adult Protective Services applied to my own household, to my own wife, hit me somewhere I was not prepared for, and I had to press my hand flat on the desk and look at the grain of the wood for a moment until the pressure behind my eyes receded enough for me to speak. "All right," I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. "I want to be very clear," Gerald Foss said, and he leaned forward slightly, elbows on the desk. "I am not telling you your son committed a crime. I am telling you that what you have shown me today describes a pattern of behavior that requires legal attention. We document, we act. We protect your assets and your autonomy. Everything else is determined by what the evidence shows." Martha looked at him. "Can we protect the Compton property, though?" "Yes, I can file a formal notice with the county recorder that no transfer of that property may proceed without both owners present and verified. It is a standard protective measure, and it goes into effect immediately." He picked up his pen again. "I will have that filed before noon." We were walking back through the parking garage toward my truck when my phone rang. I looked at the screen. Dr. Carter. I answered it before the second ring finished. "Mr. Hale," she said, "I have the results from the sample analysis. I think you should hear this now." I tapped the speaker button so Martha could hear too. "I have as many minutes as you need, Dr. Carter," I said. Martha was watching my face from 2 feet away. I put the call on speaker so she could hear, and we stood together in the parking garage on Pine Avenue with the concrete smell of it around us, and the distant sound of street traffic echoing up from below. "The tablets I analyzed are diphenhydramine," Dr. Carter said. "It is the active ingredient in most over-the-counter sleep aids, Benadryl, Zizquil, that category of medication. It is sold legally without a prescription at any pharmacy or grocery store in California." I felt a complicated thing move through me, part relief, part something darker, because I could already hear the word "but" coming. "However," Dr. Carter continued, and there it was. "Martha's post-stroke protocol includes warfarin for anticoagulation, a blood thinner to reduce the risk of secondary stroke. Diphenhydramine, in combination with warfarin, has a well-documented interaction. It potentiates the sedative effect, significantly meaning the drowsiness and cognitive fog are amplified well beyond what either drug produces alone. In a patient who is also doing physical rehabilitation, that combination causes measurable muscle weakness and slows neuromuscular recovery." A pause. The symptoms Martha described to me, the heaviness in her legs, the difficulty concentrating, feeling foggy by midday, are consistent with this interaction. My hand tightened around the phone until I felt the edge of the case pressing into my palm. "This interaction is documented in Martha's discharge paperwork from her stroke hospitalization," Dr. Carter said. "It is listed under contraindications, medications to avoid. Any family member present at her discharge appointment would have received a copy of that document and would have had the opportunity to ask questions about it." "Nolan was there," I said. My voice came out flat. "He was at every appointment." "Yes." Dr. Carter did not add anything to that. She did not need to. Martha had both hands pressed against her mouth. Her eyes were wet and her shoulders had drawn up tight around her ears, and she was breathing in a way that told me she was fighting hard to hold herself together in the middle of a public parking garage. I put my arm around her and she leaned into me and I held on. "Dr. Carter," I said, "what does this mean legally?" "I am going to be precise about my role here," she said. "I am a physician. I can tell you what the medical record shows. I cannot tell you what it means in a courtroom, or a police report that is for other people to determine." She paused. "What I can tell you is that I am documenting this in Martha's medical record as a potential violation of California Welfare and Institutions Code, Section 156, 10.57, which covers neglect of a dependent adult. Whether it constitutes neglect legally, whether intent can be established, whether any of this rises to a criminal standard, those are questions for law enforcement and for your attorney. But you are documenting it, I said. I am documenting everything, she said. The medication discrepancy, the pattern of communication interference, Martha's actual physical condition versus what was being reported to my office. All of it goes into the permanent medical record today. Another pause, shorter. Mr. Hale, I owe you and Martha an apology. I noticed early on that Nolan dominated the appointments. I told myself it was a stressed family member coping. I should have insisted on speaking with Martha privately. I did not, and I am sorry for that. I did not know what to say to that, so I said the only true thing I could find. Thank you for picking up when I called. We ended the call. Martha straightened up and wiped her eyes with the back of her wrist. One quick, decisive motion, like clearing a surface so you can work on it. She took a breath. Let it out. He knew, she said. Not a question, not an accusation. Just a fact being placed on a surface between us, flat and solid and unavoidable. He knew, I said. She looked out toward the concrete pillar at the end of the row, and her jaw was set so hard I could see the muscle working in her cheek. He sat in that doctor's office with me, she said. He held my hand while they went over the discharge paperwork. He nodded along when they explained what medications to avoid. Her voice stayed even, but the effort of keeping it even was visible in every word. And then he went to a pharmacy and bought dibenzodazine and put it in my pill organizer and handed it to me every morning with a glass of water and told me to take it. There was nothing I could say to that. There was nothing that would have been adequate. What I did instead was take out my phone and call Samuel. He answered on the first ring the way he always has, for as long as I have known him. 20 years on the same job, sites will do that you learn to answer fast, because sometimes fast matters. Arthur? His voice was the same as it always was, solid, unexcited. The voice of a man who has worked next to high voltage his entire career and learned not to let his pulse run ahead of his brain. I need a favor, I said. Name it. Tomorrow afternoon, I need you parked outside my house on Gardenia Street. You don't have to come inside. I just need someone I trust nearby. A brief pause, not hesitation. Samuel thinking, which is a different thing. What time? I don't know exactly. Nolan is going to come home, probably between 3 and 6. I'll be there by 2:30, Samuel said. You want me to bring anything? Just yourself. All right. Another pause. Then, you doing okay? I looked at Martha standing beside me in the parking garage, tired all the way through upright anyway, jaw set against everything the morning had put in front of her. Getting there, I said. We spent the rest of the afternoon at Diane's house, working through the practical items Gerald Foss had outlined. I called our bank and began the process of removing Nolan's contact status from both accounts. Martha called the insurance company and updated the authorized contacts list. I sent a text to Ray Peterson confirming in writing that his tenancy was fully intact and that he should disregard any communications from Nolan regarding the property. By 8 o'clock that evening, I had backed up every document, every photograph, every screenshot to 2 separate cloud accounts and an external drive Diane had in her home office. The notebook, the pill comparison photos, the hotel confirmation, the POA draft, the email chain. Dr. Carter's call summarized in a typed note while the details were still sharp. Martha went to bed at 9:30. I sat at Diane's kitchen table after she was asleep and looked at my phone and thought about calling Nolan. I thought about it for a long time. I thought about what I would say and what he would say back, and I kept arriving at the same conclusion Martha had arrived at 3 months ago, sitting alone in her wheelchair with a notebook on her knee. Not yet. Not without everything in hand. I went to bed at 11:15. At 11:47, my phone lit up on the nightstand. A text from Nolan. I read it in the dark, the screen, the only light in Diane's guest room. Dad, I'm coming home early. I checked the cameras and I can't see Mom anywhere in the house. Is everything okay? I'm worried. I read it twice. Then I set the phone face down on the nightstand and lay on my back in the dark and stared at the ceiling. He had checked the cameras. He had not found Martha in her usual spot. The trap had not worked the way he needed it to work, and now he was adjusting. I thought about why he had not simply driven back that first morning. The answer was not complicated once I saw it clearly. He needed footage, something concrete, something he could point to if he was ever questioned. A recording of Martha standing up on her own would have let him say she had been deceiving us, that her condition was not what she claimed, that she could not be trusted to make her own decisions. Without that footage, coming home early would have shown his hand before he had anything to show for it. So, he waited, and while he waited, we moved. I picked the phone back up and typed 4 words. We went out. Fine. Then I put it down again and did not sleep for a very long time. I did not sleep well. I lay in Diane's guest room and looked at the ceiling and thought about a text message that was 4 words long, and about a son who had sent it at 11:47 at night because he had been watching camera feeds from a hotel room 25 minutes away and had not found what he was looking for. At some point I must have slept, because I woke up at 5:53 with the particular heaviness behind my eyes that comes from sleep that did not do its job. Martha was already awake. I could hear her moving carefully in the kitchen, the small sounds of someone who has spent months being quiet so as not to worry anyone. I got up and went to the kitchen doorway and stood there for a moment. She was at Diane's counter with her back to me, both hands wrapped around a coffee mug, looking out the window at the early morning light on the liquid umbar trees. Her cane was hooked over the counter edge beside her. She had gotten herself up, gotten herself to the kitchen, made coffee, all without waking me, all without asking for help. "You should have called me," I said. She looked over her shoulder. "You needed sleep more than I needed help walking to the kitchen." I did not argue with that. I poured myself a cup and stood beside her, and we looked out the window together at the quiet street, and the coffee was strong, the way Diane always makes it. And for a few minutes, neither of us talked about any of it. Then Martha said, "He's coming home today." "Yes." "Are you ready?" I thought about that honestly, the way she deserved. "I don't know," I said, "but I'm going anyway." She turned and looked at me fully then, and her eyes were clear and steady and certain in a way that steadied something in me too. "Then we're ready," she said. I called Samuel at 7:30. He answered before the first ring finished, which told me he had been awake for a while. "I'll be on Gardenia by 2:30, he said before I could say anything more than his name. "Same spot I always park when I come over. Blue truck. You won't see me, but I'll see you. Samuel." "Arthur?" His voice was even and unhurried, the voice of a man who has worked through enough genuinely dangerous situations to know that adding emotion to them does not help. "I've known you for 20 years. Park the truck and go inside. I'll be there." That was Samuel. 20 years, and he still knew exactly how much to say. I called Diane next, told her to stay available but not to come to the house unless I called her. She pushed back on that she wanted to be there. She said, her voice tight with the effort of not saying more, but she agreed. Then I called Vanessa. I told her we were going back to the house that afternoon, that Nolan was coming home, and that she did not need to do anything except know what was happening. Vanessa was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Is Martha going to be there?" "She'll be nearby," I said. "She's part of the plan." Another pause. "Okay," Vanessa said. "Okay, Arthur, be careful." Martha and I drove back to Long Beach at 9 in the morning. The 10 freeway was moving well for once, the kind of clear run that almost never happens in Los Angeles, and that felt that morning like something the city was offering us out of basic decency. I pulled into our garage and we went in through the side door. The house was exactly as we had left it, the cameras still in their positions, the pill organizer still on the counter, everything in its place. I had told Martha I wanted to come back during the day while there was still time, so the house would not feel like something we were sneaking into. We moved through it room by room, not searching, not rearranging, just reoccupying. This was our house. We had lived in it for 23 years. We had painted every room at least twice, replaced the water heater, put new flooring in the kitchen after the old one buckled. Nolan had grown up inside these walls. I was not going to feel like a stranger in it. Martha sat at the kitchen table and went through the household files we had brought back, making notes in her precise accountant's hand. I went to the garage and checked the circuit breaker panel, out of habit, an old reflex from my working days, the impulse to know the state of the systems around me. Everything was fine. Everything was exactly where it was supposed to be. At 1 o'clock, I made sandwiches. We ate at the kitchen table the way we have eaten lunch together for 30 years. And Martha told me a story about something that had happened at her old accounting firm in the late 90s that I had somehow never heard before, and I laughed at the right part, and for 20 minutes it felt almost like an ordinary Tuesday. Then I looked at the third camera, the one pointed at my desk, and the ordinary feeling went away. At 2:15 I texted Samuel, heading into position. He texted back one word, "Ready." I went through what I needed to go through. Martha's notebook retrieved from her bag placed in the center of the kitchen table, the pill organizer beside it, my phone with the photographed documents pulled up and ready, the hotel confirmation, the printed copy of the POA draft we had brought back from Gerald Foss's office, the email chain with Pacific Premier Properties. I arranged them in the order I intended to use them, not dramatically, not for effect, but because I had spent my career working in an organized way and I was not going to stop now. Martha watched me lay out each item. When I finished, she said quietly, "He's going to try to explain it." I know. He is very good at explaining things. I know that too. I looked at her across the table. That's why you're going to wait outside until I'm ready for you. Her jaw tightened. She did not like that part of the plan, but she had agreed to it because she understood the logic. Nolan needed to see the evidence first, needed to be fully committed to his explanation before Martha walked in. The timing mattered. "You signal me when," she said. "I'll signal you." She stood, took her cane, and went to the back door, paused with her hand on the frame, looked back at me. "Arthur," her voice was low, "whatever he says in there, whatever explanation he has, remember what he put in my pills every morning." My throat tightened until speaking took effort. "I'll remember," I said. She nodded. Then she stepped outside and pulled the door almost closed behind her, leaving just enough of a gap that she would hear my voice when I called her name. I sat down at the kitchen table, put my hands flat on the surface, breathed. I thought about the boy who used to run to me when he got hurt, the teenager who called me from a payphone at 2 in the morning because he had a flat tire 40 miles from home and did not want to wake his mother, the young man who had cried at our kitchen table the night his first serious relationship ended and who I had sat with until almost 4 in the morning because that was what you did. I did not know when that boy had become someone who could sit across from his mother and watch her take a pill he had put there, knowing what it would do to her. I did not know, but I was about to find out what was left of him. At 4:42, I heard a key in the front door. The front door opened and Nolan came in, the way he always comes in, rolling suitcase first, one hand on the handle, the other already reaching to push the door wide. He was wearing the gray jacket he travels in, the one Martha gave him 2 Christmases ago, and he had the particular look of a man who has been rehearsing his entrance. He saw me at the kitchen table and stopped. For one fraction of a second, less than a breath, less than a blink, something moved across his face that was not worry and not relief and not surprise. It was calculation. I had spent 38 years reading electrical systems, tracing faults back to their source, and I knew the look of a system running a diagnostic. That was what I saw in my son's face in that first fraction of a second, before the worry settled in over the top of it like a coat pulled on over something else. Then the worry was all there was, or all there appeared to be. "Dad." He let go of the suitcase and took 2 steps toward me, his hands coming up slightly in the way they do when someone is trying to communicate openness and concern. "I have been calling all day. Where is Mom? Is she okay? You can't just take her out without telling me you know how she is right now. The doctor said she shouldn't be on her feet and—" "Sit down, Nolan," I said. My voice was level, not cold, not angry level, the way you have to be when you are working around something dangerous and losing your composure would make things worse. I had practiced that voice for 38 years on job sites. I was glad to have it now. He stopped talking, looked at me more carefully. "Dad, what's—" "Sit down." He pulled out the chair across from me and sat. He set his hands on the table in front of him, fingers loose, the posture of a man trying to appear relaxed. His eyes moved to the items arranged on the table between us. I watched him see each one. The notebook first, as his mother's handwriting visible on the open page, dates running down the left margin. His eyes stayed on it for 2 seconds before moving on. The pill organizer set beside the original prescription bottle with 2 pills from each laid out side by side on a piece of white paper. The difference in color and imprint code visible to anyone who looked. The photograph on my phone screen, the third camera, its angle clearly showing my desk rather than any area where Martha might fall. The printed hotel confirmation. Harbor View extended stay. Pacific Coast Highway. Check-in date 3 days ago. The email chain with Pacific Premier Properties. His name in the sender field. The POA draft, 4 pages. Martha's name as grantor. His name as agent. I laid them out one at a time, slowly without a word. Each item placed with the deliberate care of a man who has waited long enough to do this right. The color in Nolan's face had been draining steadily since he sat down. By the time I placed the POA draft on the table, he looked the way a circuit looks when the power goes out, present intact, but nothing running behind it. He looked up at me. "That," he said. His voice had changed. The rehearsed worry was still there, but it had a hairline crack running through it now. "I don't know what you think is happening here, but Mom is sick and you're exhausted, and you've both been under enormous stress. And I think, you told Diane I was losing my mind," I said. The crack widened slightly. "I was concerned. I expressed a concern to your sister because I was worried about... You told Vanessa I was the reason your mother wasn't recovering." His jaw tightened. "I said you were overprotective. That's different from... You told Dr. Carter's office that we had switched to a different physician. I was trying to simplify the... You told Ray Peterson that the Compton property was changing hands. That was a preliminary conversation. Nothing was finalized. You told us you were in Dallas." I stopped. "Let that one sit on the table between us the way you let a tool sit when you want someone to really look at it. And you checked into a hotel 25 minutes from this house on the same morning you drove away with your suitcase." Nolan opened his mouth, closed it. His fingers had stopped being loose on the table. They were pressed flat now, the way hands press flat when a person is trying to keep them from doing something involuntary. "I can explain all of that," he said, but the certainty that had been in his voice 3 minutes ago was thinner now, stretched out over something that was starting to show through underneath. "I know you can," I said. "You are very good at explaining things. Your mother told me that. She said if I called you angry, you would explain for 40 minutes, and somehow I would end up apologizing for misunderstanding you." I kept my eyes on his face. "She has been watching you for a long time, Nolan. She is a better observer than either of us gave her credit for." Something shifted in his expression at the mention of Martha, a flicker of something that might have been unease. "Where is she?" he asked. "She's nearby. Dad, I need to see her. If she's been walking around all day on that leg, she could have..." "Tell me about the pills," I said. He stopped. The word pills landed in the room, and everything went very still around it. Not the performed stillness of someone composing themselves, the genuine stillness of someone whose body has registered a threat before their brain has finished deciding how to respond. "The pill organizer," I said, gesturing toward it. "The morning tablets, diphenhydramine, Dr. Carter confirmed. Over the counter. Perfectly legal on its own." I paused. "Contraindicated with warfarin. Listed specifically on page 3 of her discharge paperwork. The paperwork you were handed in that room." Nolan's hands pressed harder against the table. A vein had appeared along his left temple that had not been visible before. His throat moved as he swallowed. "I was trying to help her sleep," he said. "She was restless at night. I thought if she slept better, she would recover faster. I didn't think..." "You didn't think the anticoagulation contraindication applied?" I asked. "The one the discharge nurse went over specifically. The one that is highlighted on page 3 of the paperwork." "Dad..." His voice had gone rough at the edges, the rehearsed smoothness of it beginning to fray. "I made a mistake. I should have checked with Dr. Carter first. I know that. But everything I have done for the past 3 months has been because I love her. And I was scared. And I was trying to hold everything together, and nobody was helping me. And You left your mother lying on the couch," I said, when she told you her arm felt numb and her words weren't coming out right. The room went absolutely silent. Nolan stared at me. The vein along his temple pulsed once, twice. "She told you," he said, not a question. "She told me. I thought she was just tired. I thought it was anxiety. I didn't know it was... You didn't call me." My voice was still level. "It cost me something to keep it that way. You didn't call her doctor. You didn't call 911. You were home. You were right there. And you told her to lie down and rest. I didn't know..." His voice cracked open on the last word, loud enough that it bounced off the kitchen walls, and for the first time since he had walked through the door, the performance was completely gone, and there was just a 34-year-old man whose face had gone red and whose eyes were bright with something that might have been genuine distress, or might have been the particular panic of a person who realizes the ground has run out beneath them. "I didn't know it was a stroke. I thought she was tired. How was I supposed to know?" I looked at my son across the kitchen table. I thought about all the things I could say to that. I sorted through them carefully the way you sort through tools on a job site looking for the right one. "By calling someone," I finally said. "That's how." Nolan stood up from the chair, Not aggressively, he pushed back from the table and got to his feet the way a person does when they need to put distance between themselves and something they cannot look at anymore. He turned toward the window and pressed both hands against the counter edge and stood there with his back to me and his shoulders up around his ears. "You don't understand," he said. His voice had gone tight and high, in a way I had not heard since he was a teenager. "You have no idea the amount of pressure I have been carrying. For 3 months I have been managing everything. Every appointment, every bill, every prescription, every phone call from every person who wanted to know how she was doing. I did all of it, by myself, while working full-time, while trying to keep things together at home." He turned around and his face was flushed and his eyes were wet and bright. "And this is what I get. You lay out a bunch of papers on a table and look at me like I'm some kind of criminal. I kept my hands flat on the table. I kept my voice level. Every single person who might have compared notes with us, I said, got a different version of the same story, and every version was designed to make sure we never talked to each other directly." Nolan's jaw worked. "I was managing information. I was trying to reduce stress on everybody involved." "You were managing us," I said. "There is a difference." He started pacing, then 3 steps toward the hallway, 3 steps back the way he used to pace as a kid when he was caught in something and could not find the exit. His hands moved when he talked, cutting the air. "A mom needs help," he said, his voice cracking at the edges again. "Real help, professional help. The 2 of you living alone in this house, pretending everything is fine, is not a plan, Dad. It is denial. I was trying to build towards something sustainable, something that would actually work long term. Was I perfect? No. Did I handle some things badly? Probably, but everything I did came from a real place. I love her. I love both of you." The word love sat in the room, and I let it sit there for a moment because it deserved that much. Because it might even have been true in whatever way Nolan understood love to work. "You prepared a power of attorney," I said. "You did not tell your mother it existed. You did not tell me. You put it in your desk and waited. That was a contingency. You put medication in her pill organizer that you knew interacted badly with her existing prescription. I told you I thought it would help her sleep. You contacted a real estate brokerage about selling her property without her knowledge or consent. It was preliminary, nothing was... And when she showed signs of a stroke, I said, and my voice came out harder than I had intended, harder than I had allowed it to be through any of this. You told her to lie down." Nolan stopped pacing. His hands dropped to his sides. "I did not know it was a stroke," he said, but the words had lost their energy. They came out the way words come out when a person is saying them, because they have to say something. "No," I said. "You did not know, because you did not call anyone who might have known." I looked at my son across the kitchen table, this man I had taught to ride a bicycle, to change a fuse, to shake hands properly when meeting someone new. Every decision you made assumed that you were the smartest person in the room, that you understood the situation better than your mother did, better than I did, better than her doctors did. And so, you made decisions for all of us without asking any of us. Nolan's mouth opened. Nothing came out. "That is not love," I said. "That is control. And there is a difference between those 2 things even when you cannot see it yourself." He stood there with his mouth slightly open and his hands at his sides and his face doing something complicated that I did not have the energy to interpret. Then he straightened up and his expression shifted into something harder, and he said in a voice that had found a new edge, "Mom is not capable of making these decisions on her own right now. Whatever you think you know, she needs supervision, and she needs..." The back door opened. The sound came first. The soft, deliberate tap of a cane tip against the kitchen floor. 1 step, then another, slow and even and absolutely certain. Nolan turned. Martha came through the back doorway the way she had crossed our kitchen 3 days ago, carefully with purpose, her right hand on the cane and her left hand free at her side. She was wearing the blue cardigan she had put on that morning at Diane's house, and her hair was combed, and her eyes were clear and direct and fixed entirely on her son. She did not hurry. She did not need to. Nolan's face did something I had never seen it do before. Every layer of it, the worry, the rehearsed concern, the injured righteousness he had been building back up in the last 10 minutes, drained away at the same time, like water going out of a tub all at once. What was left underneath was something raw and unguarded and very young. His lips moved. No sound came out for a moment. Then, in a voice that had lost every bit of its edge, "Mom?" Martha stopped 6 feet from him. She looked at him the way she used to look at a balance sheet that did not add up. Not angry, not emotional, just doing the work of understanding exactly where the error was. When did you... His voice cracked down the middle. He looked at her legs, her cane, her steady upright posture. How long have you been able to walk? Long enough, Martha said, to know you did not want me to. Nolan shook his head hard, the motion of someone trying to physically dislodge something. No, Mom, no, I was scared you would fall. I was scared every single day that you would try to stand up and you would go down, and nobody would be there, and when I stood up in front of you 2 weeks before your trip, Martha said, her voice quiet and even and relentless. You did not look scared. You pushed me back into the chair. She paused. You looked frightened, but not of me falling. Nolan's mouth opened. Nothing came. I want to ask you something, Martha said, and I want you to think carefully before you answer, because I have been thinking carefully for 3 months, and I deserve the same. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to raise her voice. Why did you tell Dr. Carter's office we had switched physicians? I was trying to... Why did you answer the phone when she called? Mom, you were exhausted, you didn't need... Why did you go through the mail before I was up in the mornings? Nolan pressed his hand over his mouth. His eyes had gone very bright, and the muscles around them were working hard. I was protecting you, he said from behind his hand. From stress, from things that would worry you when you were supposed to be resting and recovering and... Why is there a power of attorney in your desk with my name on it? Martha asked. The hand dropped from his mouth. Yet why did you tell Ray Peterson the house was changing hands? Nolan took 1 step backward. His heel hit the cabinet behind him. Why were you in a hotel 25 minutes from here instead of Dallas? He put both hands flat against the cabinet behind him, bracing as if the kitchen floor had shifted. His chest was heaving, and his face had gone blotchy and red in the way faces go when someone is fighting very hard not to cry and not winning that fight cleanly. Nolan, Martha's voice dropped. Not soft or more direct the way a voice gets when it is carrying something important and wants to make sure it arrives. I am going to ask you one more time, not because I do not already know the answer, because I think you need to hear yourself say it out loud. He looked at his mother. His eyes were wet now, fully the tears not falling yet, but right at the edge. Why, she said, all of it, why... The kitchen was absolutely full of everything that had been said and everything that had not been said, and 34 years of a particular kind of love that had somehow bent itself into a shape neither of us had recognized until it was too late to pretend otherwise. Nolan's shoulders dropped, all at once the way scaffolding drops, when the last bolt gives, not slowly, not gracefully, just suddenly, no longer holding. I just wanted everything under control, he said. His voice had gone to almost nothing. A man reduced to the smallest version of what he had been trying to say for 3 months. I wanted to know that everything was going to be okay, that nobody was going to fall, that nothing was going to go wrong, and I thought if I could just... He stopped, pressed the back of his wrist against his eyes hard. I thought if I could manage it, all of it, if I could be the one who held it all together, then it would hold. No one spoke for a moment. Then I said, "That is exactly the problem, Nolan." He looked at me. His face was a wreck, red and wet and open in a way I had not seen since he was very young and had broken something and come to tell me about it because he did not know what else to do. You did not want to manage the situation, I said. You wanted to manage us. And those are not the same thing. They have never been the same thing. Martha walked the remaining distance between them. She stopped in front of her son and looked up at him, and whatever she saw in his face made her own expression do something complicated, grief and love and a particular exhausted sorrow moving through it together. She put one hand on his chest, flat over his heart, the way she used to when he was small and upset, and she was trying to get him to slow his breathing down. I love you, she said. That has not changed, and it is not going to change. But what you did to me, to your father, to this family, I cannot call it care. And you cannot call it that either, not honestly. Nolan's chin dropped to his chest. A sound came out of him that was not a word, something broken and wordless that started in his chest and came out wrong. The sound of someone who has been holding something so tightly for so long that letting go hurts worse than holding on did. He stood there in our kitchen with his mother's hand over his heart and cried the way adults cry when they have run completely out of explanations. Martha did not move her hand. I did not move from my side of the table. After a long time, Nolan lifted his head, wiped his face with the back of his hand, breathed, looked at his mother, then at me. Whatever he was looking for in our faces, I do not know if he found it. He picked up his keys from the counter. "I need some air," he said. His voice was wrecked and quiet. He walked out the front door. We listened to it close behind him. Martha lowered her hand from where it had been resting. She turned and walked back to the kitchen table and sat down slowly, carefully, the way she does when her leg has had enough for one day. She set the cane across her knees. "Well," she said quietly. "Yeah," I said. We sat in our kitchen in the late afternoon light and did not pretend that any of it felt like winning. We did not sleep well that night either, but it was a different kind of not sleeping. The night before had been dread. This night was something quieter. The particular wakefulness that comes after a thing you have been preparing for has finally happened, and your body does not yet know how to stand down. At some point around 2 in the morning, I heard Martha get up and go to the kitchen. I got up and followed her. We sat at the kitchen table in the dark with 2 mugs of decaf, and did not talk about Nolan. We talked about other things. The gutter on the north side of the house that had been pulling away from the fascia since spring, whether the liquidum tree in Diane's front yard was the same variety as the ones on her street. Nothing that mattered, and everything that mattered because it was ours and it was ordinary, and ordinary felt like something worth holding on to. At 7:15 we got dressed and drove to Pine Avenue. Gerald Foss had cleared his morning calendar. His assistant brought coffee that was better than the coffee from the last visit, and he had the relevant files already open on his desk when we sat down. He did not ask how we were. He looked at our faces and understood that the relevant question was what needed to happen next. "Walk me through yesterday," he said. I did. Concisely the way I would have described a fault to a supervisor on a job site. What I observed, what was said, what conclusion I drew from it. Martha added 2 details I had left out. Gerald Foss listened and made notes and did not interrupt. When I finished, he set his pen down and said, "All right, here is where we are." He went through the items in order. Pacific Premier Properties had already received the formal notification letter his office had sent the previous afternoon, the letter stating that no member of the Hale family, other than Arthur and Martha themselves, had authority to discuss, negotiate, or arrange any transaction involving the Compton property. He had confirmation of receipt. The county recorder filing had gone through before noon the previous day as promised. A formal notice of ownership verification requirement was now attached to the property record. Any attempt to transfer, encumber, or refinance the duplex would trigger an automatic hold pending verification from both named owners in person. "That is the property locked down," Gerald Foss said. "Nothing moves on it without you both physically present and verified." Martha's shoulders dropped slightly, not much, just enough that I could see it. 3 months of tension, finding one small place to go. Next, the bank. Arthur and Martha had already changed their account passwords and removed Nolan from the emergency contact list. Gerald Foss recommended one additional step, a formal letter to the bank's fraud and security department documenting the situation not as an accusation of theft, but as a protective measure establishing a record. If anything is ever disputed later, he said, you want a paper trail that shows you acted promptly when you became aware of the situation. We authorized the letter. Then, Ray Peterson. Gerald Foss's office had drafted a short formal notice on legal letterhead, sent certified mail confirming that the verbal communication Ray Peterson had received from Nolan Hale regarding vacating the property had no legal standing under California Civil Code, that his tenancy agreement remained fully intact, and that any future communication regarding the property would come directly from Arthur and Martha Hale or their legal representative. "He will be relieved," I said. "Most tenants are," Gerald Foss said without particular emphasis. He looked at both of us over his reading glasses. Now, the medication documentation. Dr. Carter had sent over the formal medical record entry that morning, the diphenhydramine analysis, the documented contraindication, the notation regarding potential violation of California welfare and institutions code, section 15, 610.57. Gerald Foss had it in the file. "You have a decision to make," he said. "You can file a report with Adult Protective Services now, which opens a formal investigation. Or you can hold this documentation and use it as a basis for any future action if circumstances warrant." He folded his hands on the desk. "I want to be honest with you. A formal APS report will involve interviews, home visits, and a process that takes time and is not always comfortable. It does not guarantee a particular outcome. Martha and I looked at each other across the corner of the desk. We hold it, Martha said. Gerald Foss nodded. That is a reasonable position. I would recommend making sure your son is aware that the documentation exists. That awareness alone may be sufficient to discourage further interference. He'll know, I said. We were back in the truck by 10:15. Martha sat with her hands in her lap and looked out the passenger window at the Long Beach street, going by the dry cleaner, the nail salon, the taqueria on the corner that had been there since before we moved to the neighborhood. Ordinary Tuesday morning, the city doing what it always does, indifferent and continuous. I want to go home, she said. We are going home, I said. In the garage, I helped Martha up the 2 steps into the house and then went back to the garage on my own. I stood there for a moment, looking at the space, the pegboard on the wall with the tool outlines I had traced in marker. So everything went back in the right place, the workbench along the side, the shelves of labeled bins I had organized when I retired, because organizing things had given me something useful to do with my hands. Then I went inside and went to the kitchen. The 3rd camera, the one on the shelf by the window, the one pointed at my desk, came down first. I unplugged it and held it in my palm for a moment. It weighed almost nothing. Small and black and ordinary looking. I set it on the kitchen table. The 2nd one came down from the hallway mount, then the 3rd from near the back door. I set all 3 on the table in a row. Martha came to the kitchen doorway and looked at the 3 cameras on the table and then at me. Done? She asked. Done, I said. She looked at the cameras for another moment. Then she looked around the kitchen at the counter where the pill organizer had been, at the hook by the door, where the keys hung at the table, where we ate our meals and paid our bills and had sat together in the dark at 2 a.m, talking about gutters and liquid ember trees. It's still our house, she said. It always was, I said. She nodded once the way she nods when something is settled. Then she moved to the counter and picked up the kettle and filled it at the sink and set it on the burner, and I pulled out a chair at the kitchen table and sat down. And the ordinary sounds of our ordinary kitchen moved through the afternoon air around us, like something that had been waiting a long time to be allowed back in. The first thing I did the morning after we got home was go through the house room by room with a box. Not searching this time, not looking for anything. Just moving through the spaces we had lived in for 23 years and taking back what was ours. The smart speaker Nolan had installed on the kitchen counter went into the box. The pill organizer went in. The printed medication schedule he had taped inside the cabinet door, above the coffee maker, the one in his handwriting that listed what Martha should take and when went in. I found 2 more items I had not noticed before, a small motion sensor mounted above the laundry room door and a secondary contact sensor on the back gate, both connected to the same app as the cameras. I added them to the box. Martha watched me from the kitchen table. There's one more, she said. In the bathroom, above the medicine cabinet. I found it, added it to the box. When I was done, I took the box to the garage and set it on the workbench. I did not throw anything away. Gerald Foss had told us to preserve everything, but I did not want any of it inside the house anymore. Diane arrived at 10. She came in through the front door, the way she always has, knocking once and then opening it before anyone could answer, because she has been doing that since she was 8 years old and saw no reason to change now. She had a casserole dish covered in foil and a look on her face that meant she was going to help whether we wanted help or not. She set the casserole on the counter and looked around the kitchen. Where are the cameras? She asked. Gone, I said. She nodded the way people nod when they have been hoping for a particular answer, and finally got it. Then she rolled up her sleeves and started helping Martha wipe down the kitchen shelves, the 2 of them moving around each other with the ease of women who have shared kitchen spaces for decades, talking quietly about nothing important while they worked. I sat at my desk. My desk, which had been watched for 3 months by a camera, I had not thought to question. I sat in my own chair at my own desk, in my own house, and opened the household files and started going through them the way I should have been going through them all along. Account statements, utility bills, insurance renewals, property tax notices. Everything was there. Everything was in order, and my name was on all of it alongside Martha's the way it had always been. I checked the electric account. Fully paid. Had been paid on the date I remembered paying it. I checked the water account. Paid. I checked the property insurance renewal I had been told was pending. It had renewed automatically in September, exactly as it should have. I sat back in my chair. Samuel had said something to me the morning after the confrontation when he had called to check in. He had said in his particular way of getting directly to the thing without making a production of it. "You know what? I noticed you don't look relieved. You just look like yourself again." I had not known what to say to that at the time. Sitting at my desk, going through accounts that all turned out to be exactly where I had left them, I understood what he meant. My keys were on the hook by the garage door where I always put them. They had been there every morning since Nolan left. I had not misplaced them once. The back door I locked every night was still locked every morning. The bills I paid were paid. The things I remember doing were things I had actually done. I was not losing my mind. I had never been losing my mind. I had been living with someone who needed me to believe I was. Gerald Foss had sent Nolan a short formal letter through his office the same week, not a threat, just a notification. It stated that certain medical and financial documentation had been compiled and was being retained by legal counsel, and that any further interference with Arthur or Martha Hale's affairs would result in that documentation being submitted to the appropriate authorities. The letter did not accuse. It did not need to. Nolan had not responded to it. I pressed the heels of my hands against my eyes for a moment. Just a moment. Then I took a breath and went back to the accounts. Vanessa called at 2 in the afternoon. She asked to speak with Martha. I handed the phone over and went outside to the backyard. Not because I was asked to, but because it was the right thing to do. I pulled a few weeds from the garden bed along the fence that had been bothering me for weeks and listened to the neighbor's dog bark at something 2 yards over, and did not try to hear what was being said through the kitchen window. When Martha came outside 20 minutes later, I did not ask what they had talked about. She sat in the patio chair and looked at the garden bed and said, "You got the crabgrass?" "Most of it," I said. "There's more along the south wall." "I'll get to it." She nodded. We sat in the backyard for a while. The afternoon light in Long Beach in October has a particular quality to it, lower than summer, softer, the kind of light that makes ordinary things look like they have been given some thought. I had not noticed it in a long time. That evening, Diane stayed for dinner. She had made a chicken and rice casserole that Martha said was too salty, and Diane said was perfectly seasoned, and that I thought was the best thing I had eaten in 3 months, which probably said more about the 3 months than about the casserole. We ate at the kitchen table with all the lights on, talking at a normal volume, and nobody was being careful about what they said or how they said it. After Diane left Martha and I did the dishes together, the way we always have, me washing her, drying the radio on low on the counter, an old habit so old neither of us could remember when it had started. I was putting the last pan away when my phone buzzed on the counter. I looked at the screen. Nolan. I looked at Martha. She was folding the dish towel she had been using her eyes on what she was doing. She did not tell me what to do. She had not told me what to do with any of it, and she was not going to start now. I watched the screen until it stopped buzzing. Then I set the phone face down on the counter and picked up the pan and put it in the cabinet where it belonged. Martha set the folded dish towel on the counter, looked at the radio for a moment. Then she said, "Same time tomorrow." It took me a second to understand she meant the dishes. "Same time," I said. She turned off the kitchen light on her way out. I stood in the dark for a moment, listening to the ordinary sounds of the house settling around me, the refrigerator hum, the distant neighbor's television, the familiar creak of the hallway floor as Martha walked toward the bedroom. Our house, our sounds, ours. I turned the light back on, checked the back door lock out of habit, confirmed it was locked the way I knew it would be, and went to bed. Nolan called 11 times in the first week. I know the exact number because I counted without meaning to the way you count things when your mind is trying to make sense of a pattern. 11 calls over 7 days, not evenly distributed, not predictable. Some mornings, nothing. Then 3 in an afternoon. Then silence for 2 days. Then 2 more on a Thursday evening, while Martha and I were eating dinner, and my phone buzzed on the counter twice in 20 minutes, like something that had not yet learned to read a room. The first call I let ring out, the second I answered, "Dad." His voice had the particular quality of someone who has been rehearsing. Not the smooth rehearsal from before the confrontation, something rawer, more effortful. Like a man who has practiced being sincere so many times, he can no longer tell where the practice ends, and the real thing begins. "I know you probably don't want to hear from me right now. I needed you to know I'm sorry for all of it. I know that doesn't fix anything." I listened to the whole thing. He spoke for about 4 minutes. He talked about being scared after Martha's stroke, about feeling like everything was going to fall apart, about making decisions that got away from him. Some of what he said sounded true. Some of it sounded like a man editing his own story in real time, keeping the parts that reflected well and softening the parts that did not. When he finished, I said, "I hear you, Nolan." Then I put the phone down. Not angrily, not with any particular drama. I simply set it face down on the counter and went back to what I had been doing, which was replacing the worn washer in the kitchen faucet that had been dripping for 6 weeks and that I had kept meaning to get to. The second call came 2 days later. This one was different. The apology had been put away and something more familiar had taken its place. He talked about how everything he had done had been mischaracterized, about how Martha was still not well enough to be without regular oversight, about how Arthur needed to understand the liability involved in managing a rental property at their age. The word mischaracterized appeared 3 times. I counted that too. When he said, "You're both misreading this," I ended the call. I did not slam the phone down. I did not feel the hot surge of anger I might have expected. I felt something quieter and more settled, the feeling of a man who has identified the source of a fault in a system and is no longer surprised when the fault behaves exactly as faults do. The third call came on a Friday. He was angry that time not performed anger, something more genuine and therefore more uncomfortable to listen to. He said we had humiliated him in front of his wife. He said we had no idea what he had sacrificed. He said that when we needed help, real help, the kind that comes at 2 in the morning, when someone falls, we would understand what we had thrown away. I let him finish. Then I said, "I hope that's not true, Nolan, but if it is, we'll handle it." He hung up first that time. Diane told me he had called her twice as well. She had not answered either time. She had called me afterward not to report it, but to check on us. And the conversation had turned into a 20-minute discussion of whether to repaint the bedroom, and then a longer conversation about our father, who had been gone for 12 years, and who Diane said she missed particularly in October, because he had always raked leaves in October and made it look like something worth doing. I had not thought about my father raking leaves in probably 15 years. It was a good thing to think about. Samuel called on a Wednesday. He did not ask about Nolan. He asked if I wanted to drive out to the hardware store in Carson the following Saturday because he needed a specific type of wire connector that his local place never stocked, and he had been putting it off for months. I said yes. We went. We spent 2 hours in the hardware store looking at things neither of us needed and talking about nothing of particular importance, and it was one of the better mornings I had in a long time. Vanessa came to the house on a Tuesday afternoon, 3 weeks after the confrontation. She called first and asked if Martha was home, which told me the visit was not for me. I opened the door for her, said hello, and went to the garage to sort through the bin of electrical connectors I had been meaning to organize since August. I heard the murmur of voices through the door, Martha's cadence and Vanessa's, the particular rhythm of 2 people having a conversation that matters, and I did not try to hear the words. Vanessa left an hour and a half later. She stopped in the garage doorway on her way out. "Thank you, Arthur," she said. I was not sure what she was thanking me for specifically, and I did not ask. A week after that, Martha told me Vanessa had moved out of the house she shared with Nolan and was staying with her sister in Torrance for the time being. She said it the way she says things she wants me to know, but does not want me to respond to immediately, simply, flatly, without editorial. I nodded. We did not discuss it further. It was Vanessa's life and Vanessa's decision, and the most useful thing I could do with it was leave it alone. Martha asked me one evening, while we were reading her on the couch, me in the armchair, the television off for once, whether I hated Nolan. I put my book down and thought about it the way she deserved, honestly, without reaching for the comfortable answer. "No," I said, "I don't hate him." "What then?" I thought about it a little longer. "I think I'm grieving something," I said. "I'm not sure what exactly. The version of him I thought I knew, maybe, or the version of myself that didn't think to question it." Martha was quiet for a moment. Not the waiting kind of quiet, the thinking kind. "Both of those are real things to grieve," she said. "Yeah," I said. "I know." I picked my book back up. She picked hers up. The refrigerator hummed in the kitchen. A car went by outside with its windows down, and its radio on some song I did not recognize, fading as it passed. I thought about what Samuel had said. "You just look like yourself again." I had not known at the time whether that was true. I was starting to think it might be getting there. That was enough for now. One morning, about a month after everything had happened, I came downstairs earlier than usual and stopped in the kitchen doorway. Martha was standing at the back door, not sitting, not in the wheelchair, not at the table. standing with her cane in one hand and the other resting on the door handle, looking out through the glass at the backyard in the early morning light. She had not heard me come down. She did not know I was there. I stood in the doorway and watched my wife look at our backyard, the garden bed along the fence, the old citrus tree in the corner that had not produced anything worth eating in 3 years, but that neither of us could bring ourselves to take out the patio chairs where we had sat in the October light and talked about crabgrass while the world settled back into something recognizable. She stood there for a long time, just stood there on her own 2 feet looking at the ordinary backyard of her ordinary life, and the expression on her face was something I did not have a word for, but recognized immediately. It was the expression of someone who has gotten something back that they were not sure they would get back. She had not heard me. I had not said anything, but something made her turn, and when she saw me in the doorway, her expression shifted into something quieter and more contained, and she said, "How long have you been standing there?" "Long enough," I said. She looked back at the backyard for one more moment. Then she turned toward the kitchen. "Put the kettle on," she said. I did. It was a Saturday morning in late November, the kind that Long Beach does well. Cool enough for a jacket, but not cold, the sky a pale washed-out blue that gets brighter as the morning moves. I had been up since 6. Martha had slept later than usual, which meant her leg had been bothering her the night before, and she had not wanted to mention it. I heard her moving around the bedroom at 7:30, the familiar sounds of her morning, the slow, deliberate sequence of someone who has learned to be patient with her own body without resenting it. By 8, she was dressed and in the kitchen, and I had coffee ready and did not make a production of it. We sat at the table the way we sit most mornings now. She had her coffee. I had mine. The radio was on low, a Saturday morning program that plays older music, the kind neither of us can always name, but both of us know. Martha was reading something on her phone, holding it at the particular angle she uses since she started needing readers, but has not yet admitted to needing readers. After a while, she set the phone down and looked at the back door. The backyard was bright through the glass. The citrus tree in the corner was doing something it had not done in 3 years. There were small green fruits on 2 of the lower branches, nothing worth harvesting yet. But there, I had noticed them the week before, and had not said anything, waiting to see if Martha would notice on her own. She stood up. She did it the way she does most things now, without announcing it, without asking for assistance, without looking at me to gauge my reaction. She picked up her cane from where it leaned against the table edge and moved toward the back door and opened it and went outside. I stayed at the table. This was the hardest thing I had learned in the past 4 months, how to stay at the table, how to watch someone I loved do something difficult and not reach for them before they asked me to reach for them. It went against 31 years of instinct. It went against everything I had thought taking care of someone meant, but I stayed. Martha crossed the small back porch in 4 steps and went down the 2 stairs to the yard. I watched through the glass. She moved carefully, her right leg. Still gives her trouble on stairs, probably always will, but she moved. At the bottom, she steadied herself with the cane and walked toward the citrus tree in the corner. She stood in front of it for a moment, reached out and touched one of the small green fruits with 2 fingers, the way you touch something you are not sure is real. Then she turned around and looked back at the house and saw me through the kitchen window, and the expression on her face was so unguarded and so completely itself that my chest tightened in a way that had nothing to do with grief and everything to do with the particular ache of loving someone for a very long time. I picked up my coffee mug and held it up slightly, a small gesture, the kind that means nothing to anyone watching, and everything to the person it is aimed at. She shook her head, the faint smile of a woman who has been married long enough to find her husband predictable and has decided to keep him anyway. I got up and went outside. The November air was cool and clean, with that particular coastal edge that Long Beach mornings have. I walked across the yard and stood beside her, under the citrus tree, and looked at the small green fruits on the lower branches. 3 years, I said. I know. We were going to take it out last spring. I know that too. She touched one of the fruits again briefly. I'm glad we didn't. We stood under the tree together, and I did not take her hand right away. I waited. After a moment, she shifted her cane to her left hand and put her right hand into mine, and I held it, and we looked at the backyard in the November light. After a while, she said, "Can I tell you something?" Yes. When all of this started, when I was still sitting in that wheelchair, writing in the notebook, watching and waiting, there were days when I thought I was being foolish. Her hand tightened slightly in mine. I thought maybe I was imagining patterns that weren't there. Maybe I was the one who was confused. Maybe he was right, and I just couldn't see it. I looked at her. What kept you going? You did, she said simply. Not anything you did, just you, the fact of you. She looked down at the small green citrus fruits. I kept thinking he knows me. 31 years, and he knows me. If I can just get to him, if I can just get us in the same room without Nolan in between, he will see what I am trying to show him. Something moved through my chest that I did not have a name for. I should have asked you how you were doing, I said. All those months, I kept asking Nolan. I never asked you directly. No, she said. You didn't. I'm sorry for that. She was quiet for a moment. The good kind of quiet, the kind that means she is considering rather than withdrawing. Then she said, I should have found a way to tell you sooner. I kept waiting until I had enough. I kept thinking one more piece of evidence, one more entry in the notebook, and then I'll have enough. She paused. There's never enough, is there? At some point, you just have to trust. I thought about that. You did trust, I said. That morning you stood up and you trusted me with all of it. Yes, she looked up at me. And you didn't disappoint me. I had to look away for a moment at the back fence and the neighbor's yard beyond it, and the ordinary suburban morning continuing around us, because if I kept looking at her face, I was not going to stay composed. And there was no particular reason not to stay composed, except that 31 years of marriage had given me the habit. When I looked back, she was watching me with an expression that told me she had seen all of it anyway. Nolan thought I was faking weakness to fool him, she said. I know. I wasn't. Her voice was straightforward and clear. I was just being patient long enough to understand what was actually happening. That is not the same thing as faking. She looked back at the citrus tree. He thought patience was weakness. He thought needing time to understand something meant you couldn't understand it. She touched the small fruit one more time. He was wrong about that. We stood there a little longer. The morning light moved as the sun came up over the neighbor's roofline and fell across the yard in a different angle, warmer, and the small green fruits on the lower branches caught it and held it. I thought about trust, about what it actually meant as opposed to what I had always assumed it meant. I had thought trust meant not questioning. I had thought taking care of someone meant making their decisions lighter by making some of them for them. I had spent 31 years trying to do that and had believed I was succeeding. I had not understood that the kindest thing you can do for someone you love is to stay in the room and let them show you what they are capable of, not what you have decided they are capable of, what they actually are. Martha started back toward the house. I walked beside her but did not take her arm. She went up the back steps the way she came down carefully on her own, with one hand on the rail and one on the cane. At the top, she stopped and looked back at the citrus tree one more time. We should water it more, she said. Yeah, I said. We should. She went inside. I stayed on the porch for another moment, looking at the tree in the November light, and I thought, this is what the rest of it looks like. Not fixed, not resolved into something clean and simple. Just two people in a backyard learning to stay in the room, learning what trust actually asks of you. I went inside and poured us both more coffee and did not say any of that out loud, because Martha already knew it. And 31 years had taught me that the things you both already know are the ones that do not need saying. Looking back on everything that happened, I keep coming back to one simple truth I should have understood a long time ago. I trusted the wrong signals. I confused a person's confidence with their honesty. I confused someone speaking loudly with someone speaking truthfully. Don't be like me. Don't wait until the person sitting right beside you has to hide a notebook under a wheelchair cushion just to get you to listen. This was a family story I never expected to live through. And the hardest part was not the betrayal itself. It was realizing how long I had made it easy. I had handed over my attention, my judgment, my questions, because it felt like trust. It was not trust. It was habit wearing trust's clothes. God has a way of putting the right person in the room at the right moment. For me, that person was Martha. She stood up literally when I had stopped looking. My personal opinion, family betrayal, is not always loud. It rarely announces itself. It looks like help. It sounds like concern. And it works best when the people it targets are too tired, too grateful, or too loving to ask the next question. Ask the next question. Every time. If this family story stayed with you, if any part of it felt familiar, drop a word in the comments. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, yet now is a good time. There are more stories coming, and I think you'll want to be here for them. Thank you for staying until the end. It means more than you know. The following stories contain fictional elements constructed for the purpose of storytelling and reflection. If this type of content is not for you, feel free to step away and find something that serves you better. No hard feelings, and take good care of yourself.